the 27th, and it's about 9:30, but this is a pre-recorded special edition of pjnet.tv. Our bumper is running, and we are recording, and we will switch a countdown to Studio 16. Okay, well, good evening and welcome to this special recorded edition of pjnet.tv. I'm your host, Coach Prasick, and many of you may be here to see Michelle Medlock Adams. Well, the bad news is she's not here. The good news is she has arranged for an awesome stand-in that I can't wait to bring on board. I first met Cecil Stokes a couple of years ago at the North Carolina Christian Writers Conference, where he was teaching a class. I was videoing that class to produce some stuff later, and I had no idea the depth and the width of all that you've been involved in. And so tell us quickly a little bit about your past. And the thing, I was amazed at some of the projects that you have been involved in. I make little videos, you make big ones.
You know what? We're both storytellers, and that's really what it all comes down to. Whether it's in 30 seconds or 2 hours, we're just telling stories. And God has blessed me ridiculously. I grew up on a little dirt road in Tennessee, and He has taken me all the way to the red carpet. I've produced, I think, written, or directed 513 television shows, over 100 national commercials, 2 documentaries, and a feature film. So it's just, and a few short films along the way. So it's been incredible.
Well, name some of the people that you've worked with.
I think one of the most noteworthy projects I've done is October Baby, getting to work with the Irwin brothers and telling that just ridiculously amazing story of, surviving failed abortion. That's one of the ones that I feel like brought crowns in heaven. I mean, it's really an amazing piece, and absolutely love that. And then I've been able to work on shows like with Patrick Duffy from Dallas, Holly Robinson Pete, who just showed up on American Housewife. Honestly, when you work in entertainment, you start realizing people are just people. And I kind of don't have my list of special people in my head because I think we're all pretty special.
Well, I guess what I was trying to tee up there is that Hollywood does not bring to mind the most Christian and sacred thoughts. There is so much, sewage. So here you find yourself in the midst of a very secular industry in most cases. So did you feel uncomfortable? Were you able to share your walk with people who didn't know Christ, or how did it impact you rubbing shoulders so closely with people who may not know Christ?
That's a great question. When I got my first job in television, I worked there for almost 5 years, just kind of learning all the different roles, to make a TV show or a film. And when it came time for me to leave and go out on my own to create what I wanted to create, I had to name my company. And I literally spent about 18 months praying about it. Really? And named it Tent Makers Entertainment after Paul. Just knowing that anyone who said, tent makers, do you do circus work? While entertainment's a lot like the circus, I get to then tell them about Paul. And I very quickly tell them, Tent Makers is named after Paul, and Paul was a tent maker in the Bible as his profession, but he was a good person at all times. And that usually opens up the door for more questions. Shooting so much in Los Angeles and New York and places that are not known for their Christianity, there were a lot of doors that opened, from speaking with someone who was doing our catering from the day all the way up to, network presidents.
Once some of these people, the unbelievers, how did that affect your professional relationship once they figured out, oh, you're one of those Jesus guys?
Honestly, I feel like I have been very protected. Just almost like a supernatural force field around me. Doing this for 20 something years in a true dog eat dog environment. I've been blessed with the relationships that I've had. People of different faiths, people with no faith. I think Jesus has used me the way that Christians are best used in letting them watch my walk. So many of the people that I worked with, I can think of one sweet lady that I worked with probably close to 20 years ago. And, she's not a believer, but we had a connection, and she was so kind to me, and I adored her. And we've now had a 20-year friendship that she's gotten to just watch how I deal with the ups and downs in my life. And I think that is more of my ministry sometimes than even what I'm able to create.
Amazing. You feel like you're swimming in the water with sharks at times, but I find the same thing, in coaching, because many coaches are well, anyway. Turning our attention to something that happened recently, to sort of unpack that, we really have to go back in time. You created a series of 10 episodes. The video series is entitled Surrender the Secret. Now, first of all, I want to thank you for arranging permission from Knock TV to air this promo video. It's 2 minutes to air this. It is copyrighted information, but thank you, Cecil, for helping make the arrangements to air this. We're going to take a short little break and switch to that, and we'll come right back and unpack Surrender the Secret.
When you are desperately seeking God, Satan goes on the attack.
There's not supposed to be any crying today.
Never spoken about it, ever.
And that's gonna make your baby have a heart attack. You may feel him thrash around, and that's just him passing.
At death, the unborn child immediately passes into the presence of God.
But instead of feeling joyful, I got scared and made a decision that impacted both of us forever.
I don't think it's just important to surrender the secret. I think it's vital to your life to surrender this to Christ.
I think if we all realize that every single one of us that are here and living and breathing have a purpose, and we're called to action.
There's nothing as strong as a testimony.
I read his word and I know how much he loves me.
In the midst of our weakness, that's where his strength shows.
It's not something that I need to hide anymore.
Those people will see his light and show them that abortion isn't the only way.
I will forever be indebted to the women that I have met during surrendering the secret, because they were such a vital part of my healing.
I'm glad that's gone. That's not us anymore.
Yep.
Thank you, God.
Praise God.
Yeah. Thank you, Lord.
That is one powerful trailer, as most trailers are. I mean, in fact, I many times find the trailer better than the actual content. But again, thank you, Knock TV, for extending permission to air that in its entirety here on pjnet.tv. Cecil, the thing that when I first saw your announcement just recently on Facebook, I went and found that video, and there were two things that stood out in my mind that I've just got to ask you. First, I went to YouTube and noticed that the trailer was put up almost a decade ago, 2013, if I remember right. It's hard for me to imagine that a movie some 8 years later gets to the point that it is today. But even before that, I work with several writers and authors and Christian people, and when I've never heard, it just doesn't happen, that a Bible study, by a different name, by the way, translates into a 10 episode television series. How on earth did it go from, I mean, if there's people out there that have done a Bible study, do they have any reasonable hope? Oh, yeah, this is going to be a movie.
Gosh, well, I think our faith is based on hope and, faith. So anyone out there, God knows the plans that he has for you and the plans that he has for us. I do think it's remarkable that this Bible study was able to be put into a 10 episode television series. The Bible study is called Surrendering the Secret by Pat Layton. And the way that it came to be is we had just finished shooting and showing October Baby. So the abortion, surviving an abortion, and abortion was really in the Christian headlines big time right then. And I was approached by Jeff and Carrie Rogers, who own Knock TV and Ships of Tarshish, and they're good friends with Pat Layton. And Carrie actually had gone through that Bible study, and they said, we want to make this into a TV show. And the only reason things are able to happen, especially in the Christian world, is when you find someone who can fund it. So many phenomenal projects are just waiting for someone who can pay for it, for people to be able to make it. And thankfully, the funds came together to be able to tell this amazing story. And then we're faced with, how do we take a topic that most people don't want to talk about, especially if a woman has been through an abortion? How do we find 5 of them in the same city who are willing to talk about it? And God just, shows up and shows out, is what he's done so many times in the projects that I've been able to work on.
So that is an incredible transformation, that a Bible study, you do a lot of work to get it to that point, just to get that done, somehow gives birth to a 10 episode video television series. But what is even more amazing is, all of a sudden, 8-9 years later, whatever, it's on Amazon TV. How on earth, or why did it take so long?
That's one of those questions for heaven. We don't know. Of all the projects I've ever created that went beyond the pilot phase, they always aired, within about a year. And this particular show, most likely because of its subject matter, wasn't able to find a home. And Jeff and Carrie, again, worked tirelessly for almost a decade to find a home for it. It was able to air internationally, but it wasn't seen here in the United States for a big true premiere until it's now on Amazon Prime. And it's incredible. I'm stunned that it was able to come to life and have a rebirth, after so long. But I know not to question God's timing, because he knows when it was needed. And the people who needed to see it 8 or 9 years ago saw it, and the people who need to see it now are going to see it.
Yep.
20 years I'll get to see it.
Yeah. It's a little awkward. I keep turning my mic on and off. We are experiencing some climate change. In fact, we were uncertain whether we could do this because we just got past a tornado warning. So we've been kind of hunkered down. So bear with the background noise. Cecil, I'm going to turn my mic off, but I'd like, if you don't mind, to carry the water. Take us through the series, Surrender the Secret, the inspiration, the stories, and just share the story with us.
I'm first of all, I am so honored to have been able to tell these women's stories. Not only, as a director and a producer, but as a man. For God to put the mantle of sharing what they went through on me is one of the things I'm most thankful for in my life. You know, these 513 shows I've done, these 10 are my absolute favorite because they are kingdom work. And when I was first asked to produce and direct this series, literally the way that these women came together, it was completely divine. Jill, who is the leader of the Bible study, one of the great things about surrendering the secret, the Bible study, is, you know, you don't just go through it once. I mean, it's something that you can do repeatedly, and hopefully you lead other women through it. So, you know, Jill has been leading women through that Bible study for years, and she had a few women that she said she would ask who had been through it before, would they be willing to share their story on camera? And every time you go through it, there's new information released from heaven. So in no way were we worried about it feeling stale in any way. But, you know, also from the standpoint of it's television, we wanted to, I don't want us to use the word be entertaining, but we wanted to give the audience something to kind of experience along with the show. And I have a friend who I called when I got the TV series just to share with her, you know, a praise that, you know, I was getting to tell this story. And when I finished telling her the show I was doing, she said, "Did you know that I've had an abortion?" And I didn't. And that's one of the things I learned through the show is, you know, I think it's like 1 in 4 women have had an abortion, and most of them are in the church now. And that's why this is such an important show to watch and Bible study for women to do, is because it's not really talked about enough. But I chatted with my friend Vanessa, and she had shared her experience with me, and I immediately felt God say, she's your fifth. She's the fifth person to be in this show, and you can actually do the Bible study through her eyes as a first timer who's never done this Bible study before. And she is a very private person, and I just felt led to ask. And literally I called her back, and she was kind of laughing when she answered the phone, and she said, "Yep, I knew that was you because God said I was supposed to do the show, so I knew you were going to call and tell me you were going to ask me." And I was completely amazed that, first of all, God had prepared her and told her what to do, which was so out of her personality. And then for her to say yes and for us to start moving forward. Wow, it's just, you know, it's just, again, I'm going to use the word divine a lot.
Let me jump in here. Well, go ahead and finish your thought.
I was going to say, we now had all 5 women on board, and had to start planning how we would do it.
Okay. We got a couple minutes left. I can't help but ask, you are a professional. You work with talented actors. There are 2 hurdles here that seemed almost impossible. You must have thought of this. One is you're working with amateurs. Number 2, the subject matter, it's hard for women to even tell anybody about it, let alone their friends, family, and the community. But to get in front of a camera and tell the world, how did you help these women through that process?
I don't know that I can take any credit for helping these women through this process. I know that God chose the 5 women who were to be on camera. He chose the time that we were going to shoot it. He chose every member of my crew. And there are so many stories. In the 10th episode of the series, I actually host a behind the scenes that tells you everything that God did while we were working on this series. And one of the things is I got a call literally out of the blue from a young college girl in Virginia asking could she intern with me over the summer that we shot this show. And I told her I accepted her internship. And as she was driving to North Carolina to begin shooting, I finally told her what the show was about. And she had to pull over on the side of the road because she had just had an abortion. And she then got to go through the Bible study as a crew member as the women went through it on camera. So God just used us in so many different ways. And I chose a crew. I really truly wanted a crew with as many women as possible, but Gwyneth ended up being the only woman on the crew, and the rest were men. Both camera guys were men, the audio guy was a man, I'm a man. And I just chose men who all are gentle of heart and more silent than verbose. And we just tried to blend into the background as these women shared. And there are many episodes, of course, when you hear a lot of crying, especially like in episode 7, the women name their children and have a memorial for them. And there is just so much sobbing as the Lord reveals to them the sex of their child and what the women go through at that time. And when you watch the show, you see 5 women crying, but you're going to hear 10 people crying because the entire crew was sobbing along with them. That was the one of the things that we couldn't remain silent on is, you can't sit there stone faced as you hear these stories being shared by these brave, intelligent, incredible women. So we just had to become invisible so that they could share.
Okay.
And I think I know God just had a special spirit. We started every day, of course, with prayer. The entire process was covered in prayer. Jeff and Carrie, who were in Florida, were covering us in prayer. It was just I think we were just surrounded by angels as we were able to tell these stories.
It just occurred to me that this program is not airing at 9 p.m. It's airing at 9:30. So that means we've got a little extra time. So even though normally we would be out of time at this point, I want to just ask you, obviously anybody that knows you or has been in circles around you knows how important Boone is in your life and the subject of adoption. Just spend a minute or two just sharing with us that story.
God is the ultimate storyteller, our creator, the author of our lives. I feel so creative and I love telling stories, and I am willing to put myself up there and challenge the best at telling a good story. It's a gifting that he gave me and I love it so much. But he runs circles around me in the stories that he tells. And he put a desire in my heart to adopt. I remember the first time thinking about it, I was around 12 and knowing I wanted to adopt. And so, when I began dating, I only dated women who wanted to adopt. And that's a smaller pool, for dating. And I've always wanted to be married. And even in college, I was voted most likely to be married by our sophomore year in college. Like it was just really expected, and it didn't happen for me. And I had an amazing girlfriend in my middle and late 30s that wanted to adopt, and I just couldn't fathom a more godly, wonderful wife. And when we broke up, I thought the chances of finding someone like her again were not going to happen. And I wanted to be able to still give the life that God had given me to others. And God had shown me in college that I would have a son. So I became a foster parent. And literally, I believe it was around 17 days after my foster care license came in, I got my placement, and it's my son Boone, and his parental rights were already terminated, so we never had to worry about him ever leaving. And he was 8 years old at the time, and he's 14 now. And literally just yesterday, we celebrated 2,000 days of Boone, is what we call it. It's really 2,000 days of family. He calls it 2,000 days of dad. But our family's been together now today, 2,001 days. And literally, it's so amazing. We count the days. And we're so thankful that God made us to be together. And it actually changed my career. For now, I've left entertainment and I'm telling a different kind of story. God has moved us to Houston, Texas, and I'm now working with the Global Orphan Project and Care Portal. And we are here supporting people who are working and helping foster children and vulnerable families and trying to connect them with the church. And it's a whole new life and a whole new chapter I never expected, but it's better than anything I could have ever written. And my son he's the light of my life. I mean, anyone who has adopted knows there are lots of challenges with adoption. Adopting from foster care, there is a lot of trauma, and we have as many really rough, hard days as great days, but they're all worth it in this amazing story that God's still telling through us. And we even have a ministry called Boone and Me, and you can even check out our website, booneandme.org, and watch a little 8-minute video on our family and how we came together and hear from Boone. And we're just getting to expand that, working with Care Portal and the Global Orphan Project here in Texas.
Cecil, you are an amazing storyteller, but life is an amazing story if you will just, well, get the scales off your eyes, I guess it is.
Amen.
Cecil, thank you for the work you have done in the entertainment industry, and now God has called you to a new adventure, and we're moved by what you've done. We're moved by what you're doing, and we're excited to hear what the future holds as we all work together in the kingdom of Christ for His glory. And Cecil, you're a big part of that, and thank you. Thank you so much for taking time out to share your story with us here on pjnet.tv. Okay, there you see a view high atop the Eagle's Nest broadcast facilities here at pjnet.tv. What an amazing story. I hope you were inspired by that. It's a real honor to have someone like Cecil join us. And this is the place where we share our walk with Christ. It's that simple. Folks, we're going to wrap it up now. And we'll be back tomorrow evening at about 9 p.m. Eastern. Before we leave, I'd like to challenge you to ask yourself 2 what I consider to be very important questions. You ready? Here's the first one. What is the boldest thing that you have ever done for Jesus Christ? Make a movie, write a book, adopt a child, or wash dishes for the neighbor. Who knows? Mow their grass. Second question. How long ago was that? Folks, life's a story. Life's an adventure. If you're going to live it, you got to live it bold. So I hope that none of us will ever be satisfied with our answers to either of those 2 questions.